And if I used a fish gelatin, that would be the case, and that would be really problematic. So I'm going to be using a scalpel and some palette knives to slowly pry up and break the glue bond between the canvas and the hardboard. And in this case, again, I'm really lucky because this glue has just completely failed, and it is so dried out and so brittle that it doesn't take much effort to break that bond and remove the canvas from the hardboard. Now, I still want to be careful. I don't want to put any unnecessary stress on the canvas or the paint layer. So I'm going to go slowly, and I'm going to use this palette knife, and I'm going to slide it under and twist it a little bit just to break that glue joint. And as I do, I'll slowly lift up this canvas and remove it from the hardboard. Now, I could have easily removed the hardboard from the canvas with a router, chisels, and planes, but this is a fairly large canvas, and hardboard like this is incredibly tough on your tools, and so it chews through router bits and plane irons pretty quickly. Not to mention, I made some tests and I discovered that this glue joint is actually pretty weak, and so there's not really any pressing reason to break out the power tools and go through all of that labor when I can approach it in a smarter way. As you can see, it's coming off fairly easily. At this point, I'm just slowly lifting the painting off. The glue has completely failed, and this canvas is coming off nice and easily. You can see over there in the right, there was a little spot of light coming through, and I think that's a little tear that had probably caused this whole painting to be glued to the hardboard. Now, as I come to the end, I'm being extra careful because I don't want this thing to pop off and fly out of my hands and end up on the floor in a million little pieces because, well, that would be pretty bad. And so now, with the canvas removed from that hardboard, I can get to scraping. More scraping. Now, I mentioned that this rabbit skin glue had failed and that it's just completely brittle and dried out. You can see how easily it's scraped off with a scalpel. And I'm just gliding the scalpel along the surface of the canvas. I'm really using almost no pressure, and I'm just allowing the movement of the blade to break up and lift off this glue layer. And I'm only going to do this in part of the painting, and only in the parts where the impasto is relatively minor. Now, this painting was executed on a very, very fine canvas, and there's quite a bit of texture built up. And so if you can imagine, if I press on the back of the painting with this blade, the impasto, that is the textural buildup of the paint, will create a bulge on the backside. And those bulges can catch the blade and cut the canvas. So I'm only going to be using this scalpel in parts of the painting where I know it's smooth enough to do so safely.